Welcome to the Table Read Experience podcast special segment called After the Show, where we do a deep dive on the subject matter based on our latest project. My name is Lisa Harrison Jackson, and I am the creator of the Table Read Experience, as well as the writer and producer of our latest endeavor, The Draft. But before we get started, I'd like to introduce to our listening audience my special co-host, Vicente Harrison. Vicente is a nature buff who enjoys birding and hiking with his wife, Rachel, and their children, Vicente II and Harper, in Portland, Oregon. His passion for the outdoors led him to author his first children's book, My Nature Exploration, which encourages children, especially children of color, to connect with nature and enjoy its health benefits. In 2020, he collaborated with a group of artists to form the Artist Collective Group, and they adopted the concept from his children's book and created the nature-based YouTube series, My Natural Life, where he was the host and trail guide. The show featured topics such as self-care, prepping for bad weather, ephemeral nature art, nature walking, visits to state parks, birding or bird watching, and hiking, to name a few. In his day job, he is the health, safety, and emergency manager for Portland Parks and Recreation and the City of Portland's first full-time African-American park ranger. KATU Portland Local News has recognized him with an Everyday Hero Award, as well as various other awards and recognitions. Thank you for joining us, Vicente.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, you know what? I'm just excited. I'm excited, one, to just collaborate with you again. Probably one of your longest standing characters.
Yeah.
It's been going on 48 years now, but I'm more excited to put the faces with the names of the audio drama, The Draft. It's just incredible to be here, and I'm very excited for today's conversation. Last thing I'll share is, as a precursor to The Draft, Lisa talked with me about this project several years ago, and she introduced to me one of the songs for The Draft that, Trey, Xavier, and Devin were a part of in terms of their journey to the draft. And it was the song Number One Draft Pick. And that was our inspiration song through COVID-19 as I worked out with my own son and just inspired him to, be the best he can be. But thank you again, Lisa, for the warm introduction. And again, let's get into this conversation. I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. And by the way, in case you don't know, Vicente is my baby brother. But he's not only my baby brother, he's a father, he's a husband, and he ranks number 10 in a family of 11. He is a phenomenal orator, a minister of the gospel, and we are blessed to have you join us today. So again, welcome. And I want to say this too. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. Today is Father's Day, and we have an awesome episode that we are going to roll out for all the fathers and the children and just get the ball rolling. And I want to say a special Happy Father's Day to my husband, Nathaniel Jackson Jr., father of 2, and my ride and die. So happy Father's Day. God bless you. Today's episode, again, is dedicated to the fathers and is a follow-up to our most recent audio drama, The Draft. And as Vicente said earlier, The Draft is a story that is dear to my heart. It was a story that was initially come to fruition when I partnered with a local musician, Justin Payne, and we both had a heart to roll out some type of project that would really touch the hearts and minds of our audience. And the whole idea of connecting fathers to their children and just addressing that elephant in the room about the impact of what happens when fathers and children are separated just really stayed deep in my spirit. And I wanted to do something that would capture men and boys' attention, which is how I came up with the football as the platform and the draft, because who doesn't love NFL? And how they are managing their lives without their dads in their lives as they embark upon the draft. Each of them has a unique situation. They all share something in common, and that's the fact that their father is not in the picture. And in the studio today, we have some cast members of the draft as well as another special guest. But before we jump in, do you have anything to add, Vicente?
No, like I said, I'm just excited. I've been listening to this audio drama and re-listening because, I wanted to make sure I could be intimately a part of today's conversation. But it's just amazing to put the faces with the names. So I know that our listeners can't see the characters that are here, but just seeing just the collective of Black excellence in terms of the folks that participated in this audio drama is just an amazing thing to see. And especially from the young people all the way up to those that have more experience, I will say. So I'm just excited to get started. And you let me know how we want to roll out. And we can just get the conversation going.
Vicente, before we dig in deeper, I think we need to give our listeners a framework that shows how Black fathers and children rate on a national level. According to a National Fatherhood Initiative, approximately 19.5 million children live without fathers in the United States, with 64% of Black children living in fatherless homes. The World Metrics Report on Black Fatherhood Statistics reports that 22% of Black fathers live in poverty compared to their white counterparts. And now we know that poverty lends itself to a myriad of issues impacting a household and family dynamics. Children without a father are 4 times more likely to live in poverty. They are 7 times more likely to become pregnant as teenagers, and boys without fathers are 2 times more likely to engage in criminal behavior. Children from fatherless homes are 2 times more likely to drop out of school, and they are 3 times more likely to experience emotional or behavioral problems. And finally, the risk of incarceration increases by 20 times for boys raised without a father. Now, although these statistics sound grim, there is hope on the horizon, and that basically comes from the National Fatherhood Initiative, a study that was done a few years back stating that Black children with active father involvement are 31% more likely to graduate from high school. 63% of Black children with a father present graduated from high school compared to 50% of those with a father absent. Black children with involved fathers are 28% more likely to enroll in college, according to this study by the Council on Contemporary Families. So I just wanted to share those statistics because we've been hearing the negative for so long, and now it appears that things are turning around. And we want our fathers who are listening to be encouraged, knowing that it can change and it must start with them. Well, without further ado, I want to have our cast introduce themselves and share what inspired them most about the character they portrayed. So introduce yourself, say your character's name, and what inspired you about portraying that character, and who wants to go first?
Hello. I'm Kiere Phelps, and I portrayed Trey. And what inspired me about the draft the most is that, despite Trey going through the loss of his father right his freshman year of college and trying to navigate life and go through the next phases without his dad, in this corner encouraging him, especially on the football field, what inspired me the most is that Trey had the ability and was able to move on without his dad. And as we see in today's society, especially with the statistics in the Black community, when it comes to children not having their fathers, Trey was a great example of, even though you don't have your daddy in life, you can still make something out of yourself. You can still do great things. Having a dad is a blessing. Every child deserves to have both parents in the home. But, sadly in today's society is not very fortunate.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. Dee Dee, would you like to add to that? You look like you have something that you'd like to share.
Hello, my name is Deirdre McKinley, and I played Adriana Moore in the draft. And I was like an ESPN analyst, talking about the pregame shows and the 3 young men who were inspiring to make the NFL. And it was just a wonderful experience once again.
Thank you, Deidre. How about you, Damarreay?
Hi, I'm Damarreay Britton. My character was Xavier. And what inspired me about Xavier was he was a team player. I feel like the things that he had to go through was mainly like just like aggression with like having to like deal with like his upbringing and not really having like somebody come around and not really like being worried about a father, and then a father coming around and it's like now he's trying to come around there at these times when it's like I made it this far. And it's like I really didn't need you, but it's like now you're coming around when I'm about to take off. But it was kind of like beautiful just to like hear and like to listen to and to be a part of, because like my colleague was saying, there were so many of us who had to experience things like that too. And a thing about Xavier that inspired me was just his ability to not get affected by the things going on around him. Yeah, he had those times where he was mad when the teammate got into it with the other school, and there was times when he was trying to deal with meeting his father and things like that. But it just shows like the growth in young men who never had to who weren't properly raised, but just getting to that point in life, and just like self-correction in life, like with the father being a part of his new journey in life with the draft and everything. So it was really inspiring to see and to be a part of.
Great job, Damarreay. Just what inspired you about your character, and I think you covered that really well. And I think we have one more introduction here, if I'm correct. Aaliyah.
Yes, sir. I'm Aaliyah, and I played Cadence. What inspired me about my character was, I don't know how to put it, but I felt like I had a connection with my character because that's how I used to be in high school. It was a great experience working with the team.
Thank you, Aaliyah. Thank you, Damarreay. Thank you. I want to say Dr. McKinley. I mean, before I call you any other name, I feel that that's important to say. But if you're okay with Dee Dee, we'll stick with Dee Dee. And I know there's some more folks that will be a part of the conversation today. So for those new listeners that maybe are still catching up on this audio drama, The Draft, just giving you a recap of the major themes as our characters, as our people describe their characters. This is about fatherless experiences and mentorship. Young men continuing to develop their identity as they approach manhood. It's about family. It's about relationships. It's about perseverance. Being able to, I think someone just shared that, I think it maybe was Damarreay that said that, wasn't raised right. But the thing about life is, no matter what your experience is, you still have to persevere. So I think that is a big takeaway from this audio drama. And then the purpose beyond sports, because everyone is not as fortunate or as talented as Trey, Xavier, or Devin, or Kiere, Damarreay, or Jay as the real people they are. But, we have to look beyond the athletic field, especially in our community, on how we're going to, be able to develop ourselves in terms of our character as sons, as community members, and then ultimately if we become fathers ourselves. So this audio drama explores the relationships between young men and their fathers. With today being Father's Day, we want to highlight the importance of this conversation within the Black community. Bobby, Lisa has shared with me that you have a unique story, and I think it's going to help set the table for today's conversation. Can you please share with our listeners about your profound experience?
Sure. Like you said, my name is Bobby, and I've been working with Lisa for a little while, and we got to talking, and she told me a little bit about the draft, and I reflected on my upbringing. I think a lot of young men may not necessarily like the way they get brought up. Somebody on the outside looks at it and says, "Hey, you got a good dad," or your dad is mean, or whatever the case may be. When you're in the situation, it's never what the outside world is looking at. And for me, growing up, I didn't know who my dad was, and I didn't know that I didn't know. I just knew that I didn't like the way life was going for me, and everything just didn't seem right. Like, I didn't look like anybody else. People didn't act like I was acting. People didn't respond in my family to the same, to crisis situations the way I would respond. I felt emotionally detached from everybody, as I felt like a stranger with my siblings. And while you're going through school, once you find out that you don't know who your dad is, and people's dads come to school to talk to the classroom about something, and people want to know, why didn't your dad come? You don't want to say, I don't even know who my dad is. The first time something like that happens to you is the first time you realize, man, I really don't know who my dad is. And this feeling of being lost. And you go through from the time, in grade school to graduation. I went through so many different emotions to, I think I'm going to meet him someday soon and find out some things, to, it's been this many years, I still don't know who this is, and I don't ever want to meet this person again. And then I always felt like people had an advantage over me. Like, you go to track meets, you go to sporting events, and everybody's got their dad teaching them sports, teaching them stuff, and I didn't know none of that stuff. Like, I couldn't catch a football to save my life, and it was always a constant reminder, if I had a dad, I'd be living a different life. So, growing up with that mentality, we didn't have the advantage of counseling and all that stuff that they do now to help people out. So when I went into the Marine Corps, I really excelled in the Marine Corps, and I didn't have any pity for all the people that was crying. I left my home, boo-hoo, and I'm here. I'm like, yeah, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to put all that behind me, and I just decided that I was going to recreate myself. Just start from zero, starting from scratch. The fact that I didn't have a role model or a father figure to show me, the Marine Corps definitely was my dad, and taught me to be responsible for my actions. And and growing up with my childhood, I didn't want to have kids. There's no guarantee that anybody will be a good dad. So, a child's definition of what a good dad is, like, I don't know if a dad can live up to that, because the best dads that I know are the dads that tell their kids, no, you can't go here. No, you can't have that. You have to work for this. You have to work for that. But all the other kids got this. Well, I don't raise all the other kids. I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to instill something in you, so that when you leave this house, you can be the man you want to be. And oftentimes you can't be the man you want to be if no one ever tells you no. No man should have everything he wants, because if you do, how much money you make is not the determining factor if you can have something or not. If you want it and you don't want to work for it, you're going to take it. And if no one ever tells you no, then you can go drink do drugs and stuff. And at the end of the day, if you don't learn how to manage yourself, it's everybody else's fault and you never grow up. So I like to look at myself as, my life is definitely not over by any standards, but I like to say that I'm an example of, if there is no father figure that's giving you all this positive guidelines, once you get your freedom, take the time to put in the work, put in the research, and find out what's the best path to get you where you want to go. So my message to people out there that are struggling, that are growing up, you don't know who your dad is, or even you do know and you're in a bad situation, just be patient, and take the time out to understand this is bad, this is good. And then understand that just because somebody told you no doesn't mean that they don't love you, and it doesn't mean it's not constructive. And later on in life, you should be able to go back and say, I see what my dad was talking about. And even though I can't do that, I'm successsul in my own mind, because I have a 31-year-old son that calls me regularly and says, I understand why you did this, Dad. I understand why you was tough. I understand why you kept saying you wasn't trying to be my friend. And from a financial and just an outward standpoint, he's successful. And I have two other sons that, and they all three talk about, yeah, Dad is like the best dad because he says no. So that's what I got.
I think that's very important, what Bobby had said, and being in the stage where he's at. And we all know that people are all in different stages in their life with their relationships with their dad. So I think that was very profound, very insightful. But let's look on the other end of it all, because I do want to also reflect on the time when we were in the middle of rehearsing and actually recording the podcast. And we had both Damarreay and Aaliyah came to me separately, and they were, I wouldn't say shocked or shaken, but they were just like, wow, this really is speaking to me. And I want them to speak to us about how that felt, and just a little bit about your own personal experiences.
It kind of like hit a little bit close to home, a little like parts of the story, things of it, kind of like the whole like plot, like from the beginning to the end. And where I resonated with it was kind of like just like growing up, having to like trying to like take care of my family, trying to like do things that I know, put things on my shoulder that I can't really like do, or it's not really my responsibility, but you still want to do it. Like I was always a kid, like open up the doors for my mom when she tried to walk in, trying to carry all the groceries, even though I couldn't. My mom would be like, no, you can't carry that, you're gonna break the eggs. And I'm still trying to do it. It's like things like that, because we didn't have that, but you know that that's a role that isn't filled but needs to be filled. And I just like seeing that they didn't give up and that they still stuck to their goals and stuck to like school and everything like that, and didn't let the outside things push them away from that. So it was real to read and to be a part of. Like I said, it just hit home. Like reading it, you'll like read a part and you'll be like, man, that sounded like me at one time. I heard my brother say that one time, or my mama felt like that one time. I see my mama act like that one time, and it just kind of like, it wasn't just written without care. It was written from experience and written from a different place, a place that a lot of people can relate to, a lot of people in our community can relate to. So this story is definitely right here, and a lot of people definitely feel it when they hear it. So I definitely appreciate being a part of this.
I can relate to the other characters, not my characters, because one of the characters I played, Damarreay's sister in the podcast. Growing up, I was just the only girl. I had to deal with my younger brother, Damarreay. I didn't really have a father figure, but my younger brother and my older brother, they were there, and I obviously can't learn from them, but the way they would treat me and my mom was better than what my dad was supposed to be doing. And I also had the love from my grandparents and my uncle. So I feel like having other support from other family members also can help push you to do the best and keep you on the right track, and also help you navigate your experience without having your dad in your life.
Thank you, Aaliyah and Damarreay. And please tell me if I'm saying your name wrong, because we want to make sure we get it right. Am I pronouncing that right? Damarreay, correct?
I think you just got it right this last time.
Damarreay.
Yes, sir.
All right. I won't. All right. Well, all of you have shared some just tremendous gems, and I just want to go back and we're going to kind of hit on everything people have shared because we're starting our discussion now. So, Bobby, before we move forward, thank you for your service as a United States Marine. I know that there's some different emotions about the military, but one thing that is undeniable, you committed yourself to defend our country, our rights, and I'm sure you had your family and your community in mind during that service.
I thank you all for giving me a reason to serve.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, and I want to get to tie that to something that Damarreay shared about the themes and the patterns that were in this audio drama that hit home for him. Because you mentioned, Bobby, that recreating yourself was a part of your experience, your personal experience. And even through the themes that were identified in this audio drama, there was some recreating that had to be done as the highs and lows came for each of our, personalities that were in this audio drama. So one other thing that was shared amongst you all was about the influences and peer pressures. Now, we know that that's something that is real. And as parents, we deal with that all the time. You know, I have a 17-year-old son. I'm seeing it. I've seen it from a young age, starting as early as middle school through high school. I have a daughter that's 13. I'm seeing those same patterns. So I kind of want to, explore that a little bit, because a part of, I work in recreation. And that's one of the things that we say that our outdoor spaces are for. It's for people to go away and get away from everybody else and recreate themselves, and then enter back into their personal spaces with just some rejuvenation. So can we talk about influences a little bit and how to manage that? Kiere, how do you manage them? How does the conversation through your character enlighten you on that experience?
Well, speaking from a personal experience, right now I'm helping my mom, my dad, and my sister take care of my 8-year-old nephew who was abandoned at the age of 5. He came from a very abusive mentally and physical environment, and he was thrown out on the street at the age of 5 by my brother and his second baby mama. I was blessed and fortunate enough to have my dad in my life, but your older brother, he's supposed to be like a second father figure, something that you can look up to. Say like your dad isn't there, you got your older brother you can look up to. For me, that wasn't the case. I was abused emotionally, I was abused physically, and honestly, I felt very worthless when it came to him. When I look at my nephew, sometimes I'm like, I'm technically his dad. I didn't tell him to call me dad, but one day he was like, "Hey, Dad, how you doing?" I'm like, "Dad, boy, I'm your uncle. I ain't your daddy." And he said, "You my daddy. You and Grandpa, I got 2 dads." So I was like, you know what? I had to take a step back and be like, okay, you know what? He doesn't have his dad in his life, and I just want to make it, my business to be there for him, like I am his dad. So whenever he calls me dad, I welcome it with open arms, and it's good practice for me. So when I have a son one day or a daughter, I can relate to how they feel. And also, it's good to have the practice now. When I look at my nephew, I look at me becoming a better person, me becoming a better leader, stop making excuses, stop pointing at everybody else, and just learn how to take accountability. The first step to becoming a man I learned is taking accountability and not blame everybody else for your mistakes. So as an uncle, I just want to continue I want to do something that my brother didn't have the guts to do. I want to be that man for him so he can grow to be responsible. I was very blessed to do this, and I just want to continue to be who God wants me to be.
Yeah, sometimes father figures are not necessarily those who actually donate the necessary pieces to be the father. Sometimes there are individuals who are in your life, may not even be blood related, but have something in them that resonates in you as an individual and help your own personal growth and development. So I think that's quite honorable that your nephew looks up to you in that way, Kiere. And even though he's not your son, you have taken on that role for him now, so that there's nothing missing in his life, in his eyes. So I think that's a beautiful testimony. I know that Dee Dee also is sitting here, and we need to find out, as Adriana Moore, our sports analyst, what the same question, Vicente, if you don't mind repeating the question that you asked.
Absolutely. We were talking about influences, and peer pressure is another term that we can use, and how to manage that. So, Dr. McKinley, tell us about, your experience in that realm, but also how to help, if there's any insight that you have on managing influences, because we all have dealt with it personally growing up. And then we all maybe have had children, nieces and nephews, where we try to help them manage that as well. But, can you talk about that a little bit?
As a former administrator in school, I can speak on that side of things, dealing with students and having different stories come present themselves in my office, and the influence that the conversations that I had, and really trying to impact them in a way that I'm a good listener, and whatever I can do to influence them to make these decisions they had to make, the path that they would like to go down, the straight and narrow path, instead of being part of the crowd. Some of those situations over the years were very difficult, but I felt that God placed me in that position to be able to be that positive role model for the students that came across my path, and I was blessed and grateful to be able to be there for them. My father was a great role model for me, although he was a father who was married, a man who was married 3 different times, and I would have to say that I know some of my siblings from his first marriage. We all love our dad, but they felt a certain way about dad because he wasn't there for them when he married my mom. And so over the years, I know they had struggled with their relationships, or even though he's passed on, my father died at the age of 57 in 1989. So he's been gone for a while and left very early, but there were some not good feelings from his first, my siblings from his first wife, because how he left them at young ages and things like that. But we are a close-knit family now over the years, that my siblings from, he had 5 kids with his first wife, 2 with me and my brother with my mother, and she had a daughter already. So 3, all of us was raised by him. And then his third wife, who is still living, is my stepmother, and she had 3 kids, but they didn't have kids together. So he has a lot of kids out there. However, I know personally from my dad, I felt like I am him. The way he kept the family together when he was here, he would call all of his kids and just make sure how they were doing okay, and then make sure we knew what everyone else was doing. So now, as the youngest child out of all of his kids, his biological kids, my older siblings tell me that I am Sylvester Jackson, because I'm the one that keeps all of the family members informed of what everyone else is doing, even my nieces and nephews and all of it. So he influenced me, and I'm grateful for the time that I had with him. And I'm glad that I learned from him, and I'm glad that I'm able to shine in other forms like him, and like as an administrator and things like that.
You know what I love about this? I love that everybody has a different experience. And that's what the whole purpose and hope for the draft was to give a voice to every individual about their own experiences with their fathers, because this is the topic, the fathers. And I love that, because sometimes people feel hopeless. Sometimes they feel like what they have to say doesn't matter because they weren't a part of what caused their father and mother to separate. And so oftentimes the kids are left just feeling like, we just have to live with what you couldn't get right. And I felt like this would be a great opportunity. And I just love to hear everybody's different stories, because we all have different stories, and no story is greater or lesser than the other, because they're all very unique to each of us. And in our last 30 minutes of the show, I want to dig more deeper into that whole father and child relationship. Most of the time people aren't very honest, because sometimes you feel like if you're honest about what's really going on, that you're dishonoring your parents. But it's not necessarily dishonor if that is your reality. And that's giving the voice to the situation. And sometimes if you don't say anything, what they say, if you have not because you ask not. Well, if you don't say anything, it continues to go on and on and on. So if everybody could just think of one word that truly described your relationship with your dad, what would that one word be? Like when I think about our dad, a man who had 11 kids, that's bold. That would be bold, because we didn't come from money. We did not come from money, and we didn't have a big fancy house or anything like that. And he could have walked out the door, because it would have been very easy to do that. But I think of him as being bold. And I just think about your relationship. Think about your relationship with your own dad. What was a word? And be honest with how you feel, because this is your opportunity to share and speak for those who are not in this room. And sometimes it releases people to feel free. So I'm just going to let people take it away.
When I think about my dad, he reminds me of how to be courageous and how to show great restraint no matter what anybody says about him. My dad used to get picked on because of what he looked like. His nose was too big. People thought he was slow. And, people thought he wasn't going to be nothing. His own siblings said he wasn't going to be nothing. His mom died when he was 10 years old. And he came from a house of 14 children. And my dad was the youngest boy and went through a lot, especially what people had to say about him. And one thing my dad always told me is that, don't let anybody tell you that you can't do anything. My dad got into a lot of things when he was younger, but he asked the Lord for forgiveness so he can, be a man of honor and raise his children to not do what he did. So when I look at my dad, I look at somebody who is an overcomer, somebody who showed great restraint, and somebody who deep down inside I want to be like.
Thank you, Kiere. You gave us more than a few words about your father, which is excellent, which just lets us know the passion and love in that relationship. And I know Bobby has something to share, but I also want to, because Lisa and I have the same father, and she shared bold. But when it comes to my father, I had consistent, right? Because, 11 kids, he had to be consistent. Like he didn't waver from the first Harrison to the last. So just again, us coming from the same household and kind of having two different words in mind is amazing. But I want to go to Bobby when it comes to one word that truly describes your relationship, and you can use more than one. What would you say and why?
My real dad and the guy that was in the house while I was growing up were the same person. And the word I would use, unfortunately, is selfish. They only cared about what they was getting, what they could turn any situation of how it affected them. And I'm not like a basher. I'm like a dad basher or anything like that. The life I lived growing up made me the dad that I am, and I'm not here to say I win the best dad award, but I didn't want to be a dad, and I didn't want to have kids because I didn't know if I could do it right, and I knew enough to know that I didn't have any training on how to be a good dad. So, yeah, unfortunately, very self-centered, very, very selfish. So, the one thing I know is not to be selfish with my kids, and that's the one thing they'll probably tell you about. I sacrifice everything. They still hear no a lot, but if my son says, "Hey, I want to play football," he's going to have everything he needs to succeed, and they all know that. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Bobby. I think that no is important. And sometimes parents have to play good cop, bad cop for just a plain term, because, when dad has to be the enforcer, mom has to come back and be the nurturer. And then sometimes it's the other way around. Mom has to enforce and dad has to be the nurturer. Aaliyah, you said some good things earlier about it taking a village. And I want to just hear, if you had one word to truly describe your relationship with your dad, what would it be and why?
Inconsistency. He would be in and out. Personally, with me, I kind of gave up a long time ago when I was in elementary school. I always would ask my mom to not let him have my phone number because I was tired of the in and out and not having him there. And then when he was there, that little girl in me would be like, "Oh, he's back." But then he would leave again, so then that would just break my heart even more. So the word inconsistency would just describe him perfectly, because he'd just be in and out.
Thank you, Aaliyah, for sharing that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Aaliyah. And again, this is where the genuine part of this conversation happens. And this is the part that we really were, compelled to have today, it being Father's Day, and us being an inspiration for fathers on both sides, whether you're there or maybe if you're not there, a wake-up call for you to be in your child's life the best you can be. But Damarreay, I want to come to you next. If you had one word to truly describe your relationship with your dad, what would it be and why?
If I could describe my dad in one word, I'd have to break it down like this. My dad was... Basically, what I'm trying to say is my dad is a lot of things, but he was the one thing I could say about him was he was real. He was real. And when I said that he was real, I mean, like, he would tell us, "Yeah, I'm not in your life. Don't look at the things that I did, this and that." But he never would lie about the situation. So I could say multiple things about him, but what I took from him, the only thing I could take from him is the good things. And the only good thing that I could really take from him was that he would if I had to ask him something, he would let me know. He would tell me about it. He would talk to me. I'm not saying there's not things he would tell from me because I don't know, but just like him acknowledging that, yeah, I'm not there. It's on you, basically. So I appreciate the fact that he didn't try to like play a role and like try to have one foot in and one foot out. Like my relationship with my dad is kind of like, I treat him like a friend. So it's like, if I got a question I know I really need an answer to, I'll go to like my grandfather or somebody else. But the fact that my dad, like, he knows that he's not gonna be there, and he's not somebody to rely on. So that's why I say it's real. Even though real, there's like levels to real. It's just like he let us know that what it was. So I don't really expect too much from him. So I guess just what I took from my dad is just the realness. I guess just being able to say what it is in times, even though it's kind of conflicting in a way, because what he did wasn't real. Leaving your family, that's not real. It really happened, but it's not real. It's not what men do. So I don't know. I really kind of don't know. I kind of learned. I learned more from my grandfather and my uncle, but from my dad, I guess just to roll with it and to don't let that be the end of everything. He may not be there, but I still got my father up above, so that's what matters.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for sharing, Lisa. It just warms my heart to have this reflection on experiences. But I'll let you take it before we have a follow up.
I think that, while all of our fathers have come in different forms and packages, as African American men, we know that no one was unscathed when it comes to maybe incidents or issues. It's just how, and I'm just trying to come from a different perspective, it's just how they were able to deal with them, how they were able to manage them. And unfortunately, some were not able to deal in a way that we would have liked. And because it impacted us differently, impacted our lives differently. And when I think about the fathers, I wanted to give them an opportunity to be able to just feel like the door was open, such as in the storyline with Xavier and his dad. The door was, the dad approached him about starting over. And he took responsibility for everything that he did to lose favor and lose the respect and honor from his son. And he was willing to work to make it happen. And so that's what my hope is, that when people listen to the draft or when they listen to this particular episode on Father's Day, if you're a father, I hope that you take all of these stories, everything that people have said, the good, the bad, the ugly, and you personalize it, and you think about your own children, and you think about what you could have done better and what you could still do better to restore that relationship. Because the one thing I've always told, I don't have any sons, but I have brothers. And I say, God created Adam before he created Eve. So that means he gave Adam absolute authority first. And that authority did not disappear even when sin came in. That authority was supposed to stay in place. And I think a lot of men don't realize, or maybe they haven't been taught, that authority is, as a man, as a provider, as a priest, that is still a part of the role of a man. And when it comes, and I'm going to go there because I always want to say, look, I'm looking at the beginning and the present and the end. At the end, you'll be charged for what you did not do. Whether you loved that woman or not, whether you knew that you had those kids or not, when you find out that you did, it is in your best interest to try to make amends for not only that child's sake, but even for yours. And because we don't ask for things to happen necessarily in life, but we have to learn how to live with them. And we have to learn how to do our very best.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it earlier that through this project, I mean, you just addressed our listeners, but through the panel that is here today and all of the folks that participated in this audio drama, through this project, we can learn that these conversations are therapeutic. So I appreciate this opportunity for people being their authentic selves. And hopefully this is a therapeutic reflection for you. And, you know, going back to Damarreay briefly, where he talked about real, like real is real. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but just the reflection of the fact that it's real and you're able to identify that. We hope that's a takeaway that you can carry into you as a father potentially in the future. Bobby mentioned a word earlier, patience. So this is something that we all have to have regardless of what our plight is, what our experience has been, and irregardless, patience is going to have to be a virtue through the ups, through the downs, whether things are going good or whether there's opportunity for improvement. I want to give Deidre a chance to reflect before we go to our next question, because I know we're winding down to the last moments of our podcast. But before we move off of this, did you have anything to share in terms of, if you had one word to truly describe your relationship with your father, what would it be and why?
Well, since we were on the subject of Jesus, God, and relationships, I know my father was a God-fearing man. Despite all of the battles and the demons that were trying to steer him in different directions, he would faithfully get up and go to church on Sunday morning. And out of all my siblings, I was the one that attended church for the most part with him growing up. And he was a deacon, and I'm a deacon now. I lead Sunday school with my husband and all those wonderful things. So I know he was a God-fearing man, and he planted that in my soul, in my spirit.
Thank you for sharing that. So we can always come back if something resonates that you want to just get a point in. We can come back to these questions, but I'm gonna move us along to the next question, and we're gonna probably come back to Kiere. In this audio drama, The Draft, what I appreciate is that each young man was navigating their life without a father and struggling with questions of identity, purpose, responsibility, and what it truly means to become a man. We kind of touched on this, but I just want to hit home on this a little bit. Can you just expound on that further? Identity, purpose, responsibility, and what it truly means to become a man. You started off with that, so I just want to give you a chance to kind of close that thought a little bit.
One thing I could say is, when it comes to this entire project, is that it taught me a lot how to take accountability for your actions. Regardless of who's there or not, you are accountable for your own self. And like I said before, I was blessed and fortunate enough to have my dad in my life. But at the end of the day, my dad did his job. He raised me. Anything I do moving forward is solely up to me. So I have no reason not to succeed. If I don't succeed, if I don't meet my goals, if I let myself down in a way, it's on me. But my dad gave me the tools necessary to survive and how to be a man, how to be responsible. And like I said, I'm the uncle of an 8-year-old nephew, and I just want to be there for him the best way possible and lead him to Christ, and, get closer to Christ myself. I choose to become better and make no excuses. So like I said, I admire my dad for always teaching me how to be a doer instead of a sayer, and how to always be honest with yourself. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Kiere. And Bobby, I'm gonna come to you next, because you talked about this early on about the role of kind of being a friend versus a counselor. And Damarreay talked about it as well, how he goes to his father as a friend. but we want to know, like, what does it truly take to become a man in terms of identity, purpose, and responsibility? Do you have any reflection on that?
Yeah, I'll first start by saying, don't get in a relationship if you don't want to be a father. At the end of the day, is it really an accident? Like, at the end of the day, you know, a man and woman get together, there's the possibility that a baby could pop up in that scene. So, you know, stop saying you're not ready. And, you know, don't create a situation where excuses can lead you to be what we're all talking about. And like my man was saying over here, real men keep their families together. So a real man also takes the opportunity to investigate a situation, because what you were saying is you can't lead somebody if you can't follow. And if you can't follow rules, following rules doesn't make you weak. It gives you knowledge. Before you can lead, you have to know how to lead. So you got to know the rules. You got to investigate the rules. I went to marriage counseling, but to my knowledge, there was nothing wrong with my relationship. And I went to marriage counseling twice just to find out, you know, is there something I'm missing? You know, my wife, you know, she thought that was a good idea, and we had fun. We had a good time, and we learned some skills to help us with future arguments that you are going to have in a relationship. And it's all kiki and ha when you're looking at boyfriend and girlfriend. But if y'all in a relationship, like my man said, you gotta be real. You gotta keep it real. The future is coming and it's real, whether you're ready for it or not. So I hope I answered that question. Knowledge is the key to being a father. And I mean, everybody got their own definition of real, but real is training your kids how to survive in a world that's trying to kill them.
Absolutely. I think one thing is real about becoming a man is that it's a constant destination and it's not an arrival, because life will always present you with different stages and growth that you have to man up, so to speak, when circumstances come your way. So I appreciate you sharing that, Bobby. Damarreay, you've kind of hit on this earlier as well. When it comes to questions of identity, purpose, responsibility, what does it truly mean to become a man? Take that anywhere you want to go.
In my opinion, what it truly means to become a man is to block out temptation. And when I say block out temptation, that's not something you can block out, because it's going to occur, it's going to pop up. But it's about getting through those reoccurring cycles, because that's what everything, I feel like everything kind of like comes back around in a cycle and in a different way to like get you through it. So like everybody thinks that everybody has their own interpretation of what a man is. You might see somebody older than you trying to tell you, oh, you're doing this wrong, and they could be steering you in a whole different direction. It's really about that internal code of good and bad and knowing what's right and what's wrong. That's why I'm thankful for all the times that I bumped my head and the times that I did wrong, because it lets me know, well, even though I knew then, it really let me know the path. Okay, that's not it. That's an error. Okay, a little bit further this way. Okay. And it's trials and tribulations. So I feel like just following what you just taking into account of what you did wrong and actually having empathy for yourself and others, and that will take you far as a person. If you don't have empathy for yourself, you don't care for yourself, you don't care for others. I mean, it really starts there, knowing yourself and having care for other people, and then you'll understand how to operate within the world. And God, read your Bible too. Call on to God too, because that's key. That's a major key too.
Major key indeed. And I see Lisa maybe have some reflections, but before we go on to our next question, because I know everybody here is not a man, so you don't necessarily have that firsthand experience, obviously, on what it takes to become a man, even though you've engaged with a lot of men. But everybody's had the experience of emotional wounds, family challenges, relationships, difficult choices. this was a theme that was in this audio drama. And what I appreciated about the experience is that as draft day approached, the young men were confronted with each one of these things. So before we hear from anyone else, I want to just kind of pass it back to you, Lisa, on any reflection you have in terms of those experiences, or, if you wanted to reflect on our last questions on your experience on what it becomes a man in terms of from a woman's perspective.
Well, I think everything that was said was on point. Again, as you said, being a woman, I certainly cannot tell a man how to be a man, but, there are characteristics that clearly show when a man is taking care of his family, when he is being accountable for his actions, his words, his deeds, when he is just showing up, even when it's hard to show up, when your body's broken and you're tired and maybe the money's not where you need it to be, and you just don't feel your very best, but you still show up and show those people that you love that you're there for them. And you're not going to abandon the process or abandon the role. So, when I think about that, those character traits, I think those are in addition to everything that everyone has said. I feel like those are the best traits, And what about you, Vicente? What do you think?
You know what I'm going to say? You got to have your mind, your body, and your spirit aligned in the natural way. So working on your mind is something that is a consistent thing that you always have to do. Grounding oneself, reflecting, prayer, meditation is just a constant as you develop into a man. Your body, Bobby was a Marine, and I heard Damarreay talking about working out, and Kiere talking about working out before we got started today. And taking care of your body is something that is what a man does, because you're going to have to use it for your own self, but also as you have a family that's responsible for you as well. And I think we've all shared about how important the Spirit of God is in our life in developing our spiritual life. And it's something that is under constant development as well. I heard Kiere say that when the Lord takes something away from you, he takes it away completely. But I would counter that with, that's where the patience comes in, because it takes time for things to change. And the Lord wants us to change fully. So in order for it to do that, it takes the experiences of falling down and learning from those experiences and getting back up and being more knowledgeable on how to move ahead. So those are the things that I think, again, summarizing what we all have shared. There are no right or wrong answers, but it truly takes all of these attributes in order to develop into a true man. But transitioning into the question that we all can answer, and I'm going to go back to Deidre first, about when being confronted with emotional wounds, family challenges, and relationships as Trey, Xavier, and Devin. How have you navigated challenges when you're confronted in tough situations, especially during pinnacle moments, right? There's times where it's a pressure moment in your life and you have to move ahead. Can you talk about how you deal with those emotions and challenges and relationships in those times?
When it comes to making difficult decisions, when it concerns your career, your family, friends, whatever the case is, regardless of what the situation is, good and bad, it's how you handle it. Because sometimes too much pressure can break anybody and they can go into a cycle of bad things that can lead to their ultimate demise. What I say is, it's how you handle a situation and, what can you learn out of it? How can you persevere? How can you allow this challenge to mold you to become better? Or are you going to let this challenge succumb you into something that you weren't meant to be. You know, like I said, God puts us in uncomfortable situations so he can test us. Because if we've never been uncomfortable, then we've never been tested. God wants his children to be tested. The Israelites were tested. People in the Bible were tested. The Israelites were tested when they had to where they had to wait 40 years for their promised land because they were disobedient. And then when that time came, they had to pass another test. They had to make sure the walls of Jericho came down on God's authority, not their authority. Regardless if it's yelling, if it's dancing, if it's singing, the whole point is obeying God. What God looks at as simple instructions, it may not make sense to us. And what makes sense to us may not make sense to God. That just goes to show you that God's ways is different from ours. And as long as we obey him, and as long as we serve him wholeheartedly, then we can know, what we're supposed to do, for his kingdom purpose. And that's something I really want to do. I just want to live for Christ. Anything I do, work, job, relationship, friendship, everything I have, I give it to God. As long as he's in the center, everything's going to work out for my good. So just stay humble and, continue to seek the Lord while you can. That's why I say today.
Thank you, Kiere. This is our round robin wrap up. So we want to go around and just make sure everyone has their final thoughts in terms of just overcoming challenges, because I think that's one thing we want to leave our listeners with on how we overcome these challenges. I'm going to go to Bobby next. Bobby, family challenges, emotional wounds, relationships. How do we overcome those?
I have to say, the younger version of me handled it poorly. Testosterone is a beast. And when you're young and you're hungry to prove yourself, you miss some good advice from time to time. But once again, as everybody has stated time and time again, I was in church background, and I was one of the few kids that actually took the Bible and Christianity seriously. Another thing I got teased for. But that was the thing that I was able to lean back on, and I was able to pray. And I'll be the first to say, God has answered every prayer I've ever prayed, and everything I've ever asked for, God gave me an answer for. So I don't live in confusion, but patience, patience for sure. And God gives you patience by putting you in a situation to deal with other people. And when you deal with other people and you have other life experiences, how you handle those life experiences will shape you into the person you will ultimately become. And many people, depending on who you interviewed and to say, who is Bobby, you'll get a different answer probably from everybody. I made a lot of mistakes growing up, as young people do, but a lot of the things I've seen some of my peers, mistakes they made, I was able to avoid that because I truly believe that God had something better for me. And if I was just patient, and I always believe to treat everybody deserves respect, but you have to work to be disrespected. So with that frame of mind, here we are.
Thank you for sharing, Bobby. Dr. McKinley, do you have any thoughts on overcoming challenges as we wrap up today?
Prayer, patience, and perseverance. The 3 P's that have helped me through 63 years of life, and it, especially in the last, I'm going to say 30, 40 years of my life. Because like Bobby said, as a child, as a teenager, all the mistakes that I've made over during that time, I'm grateful that I was introduced to the Lord in an early age with my father, because learning what you should do, although you do what you want to do at times, there's going to come a time in life where either God is going to sit you down or he's going to show you that, hey, you need to turn yourself around. And I'm grateful to that. And that's why I'm here today. So prayer, patience, prayer, and perseverance is my three things that I keep close in my heart and my mind and my soul. And that's how I try to live my life every day.
Thank you for that. We're down to our last two folks on our panel. We want to give them an opportunity to briefly share. What are your thoughts?
First thing I rely on to overcome problems is the wisdom and things that I learned from God or my past experiences. That's the first thing. I'll try to go to my little handy dandy, my box, my brain, and try to figure out how I saved myself the last time, or how God pulled me out the last time, and what I had to do. And another thing too, to overcoming things, is keeping your ears closed to everybody else, to a lot of people, and taking things with a grain of salt, because this is everybody's journey is different, and your journey might not look the same as somebody else's. So somebody might have something to say about how you're walking and your step and your path, but you just got to know that those are the tests too. That's sent there for a reason too. So it's about overcoming and taking the narrow way to where we gotta be, where we gotta get to. And the main thing too is overpowering the worldly things with the spiritual and the godly things and what's real. Because a lot of us like to give in to this music and the movies and the things on social media, all the fear factors, the wars, and all the things that they talk about and that they try to make the world go crazy over. But when you know that God is at the center of everything, there's nothing to worry about. So you got to stay strong in your own journey, in your own path, and know that when we bump our head, when you fall, that's not the end of it. You got to get back up and keep going.
All right. Aaliyah, what do you do to overcome challenges, Aaliyah?
I'm still actually kind of learning, but I'm starting with myself first, and then once I can get myself figured out, I can start to help other people get past their trauma.
Thank you. So yeah, Aaliyah, you just demonstrated perspective. You have in perspective of, getting yourself right first before you can be an assistance unto other. Like on an airplane, you got to be able to put your mask on first before you can be a help to others. So before I kick it back to Lisa for closing thoughts, because we are at the end of our time today, there is hope, not only through projects like the Draft audio drama, but according to the National Fatherhood Initiative, proportions of American children living with a father in the home reaches a 34-year high. So there are some things that are turning around, and there is some hope. So all of the young people on here, there is a bright future. And a lot of the things that you've shared today shows that the perspectives that you're carrying into that future is only going to help raise that number a little bit more. And again, before I go to Lisa for closing thoughts, we have additional resources that we can share that will be put in the description of this video. But reading books, one of the books that I really like to read is Tony Dungy, Quiet Strength: The Principles, Practices, and Priorities of a Winning Life is a tool that fathers can use. Also, Most Valuable Dads, Inspiring Words of Fatherhood from Sports Superstars. Dale Curry contributed to this book. And I also have my first book that I ever received, and it was from Lisa, who was an author and avid reader as well as a playwright. Makes Me Want to Holler: A Young Black Man in America by Nathan McCall. So if you don't read all the chapters or every part of the book, just pulling out the things that speak to you is a good way to keep yourself grounded and continue to work on and develop that mind. So, Lisa, what do you have to say?
I just want to say this has been an awesome gathering today, talking and sharing about the importance of fathers and fatherhood, being a dad and showing up and being all that you need to be. And it's not too late to be that. And that's what we want to encourage men, old and young, to take away from this gathering today. You heard many different voices. You heard many different perspectives. And I definitely want you guys to remember that this is what we do at the Table Read Experience podcast. We tell real stories that touch real people, and we hope to come up with real answers. And so I thank you all for joining us today. Happy Father's Day. Go out, eat some barbecue, a steak, a baked potato, whatever the case may be, but please do it with your family, do it with your children, and know that you're not alone. You have people such as this team, this awesome cast. Thank you so much, as well as Bobby Anderson for joining us on this endeavor. Everybody means so much, and they played such an important part in this process. And so thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to check us out on our YouTube channel at the Table Read Experience podcast. You can also catch us on Spotify at the Table Read Experience, Apple Podcasts at the Table Read Experience. And also you can check us out on Buzzsprout at the Table Read Experience. and definitely go and listen to some of our previous shows. Check out the draft and stay tuned for another production coming down the pipeline next month. More information will be posted about that coming soon. But again, thank you for joining us. God bless you and have a wonderful day.
Can I sign it off, Lisa? Officially?
Yes.
All right. Happy Father's
Take it away.
Day again. Happy Father's Day again. Stay peaceful, stay healthy, and stay natural. Goodbye, everyone.